Well, were you expecting that? After Lords, we thought England were due for a response, and what a response. 4 wickets in the first session of play of this third test match at Headingley. The legend that Jimmy Anderson is continues to roll on, and a wicket just at the stroke of lunch for Ollie Robinson to get rid of Ajinkya Rahane. 56 for 4 is where we are at lunch on day one on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. Ian Bell and Maninder Singh. Belly, you wanted a response from England after Lords. That's as good as it gets.
Well, this is what you expect at
100%.
international level, because this English side, they're a talented lot. There is no doubt about it. And I was actually expecting them to come back the way they have. But hats off to Jimmy Anderson. I mean, he's around 38 years old, more than 600 wickets, and he's still hungry. The way his run up is, the way his approach is. You can see that it's an 18-year-old, 19-year-old young lad, who wants to keep getting wickets, and that is why he's become such a great bowler. Hats off to him.
Yep. Belly?
And like I said, I think from the start, I think it's the right decision to win the toss and bat. But again, I think as a fielding team, you don't mind having got bowled first in those first couple of hours, especially if there's overhead conditions, which there was. And at Headingley, we talked about it before. It's the kind of pitch you're never quite in on. I think we saw the lengths that England bowled as well, nearly committing the drive, making India try and drive the ball down the ground or through extra cover, which brings in the nicks. So yeah, brilliant start from England. And India are going to have to try and find their way to a score of 200. But again, like I said, it's the kind of pitch, it does get a little bit better 2 and 3. But England have done everything they can so far that first 2 hours.
Some opening spell of bowling from James Anderson. 8 overs, 5 maidens, 3 for 6. I'd like to break down what we witnessed this morning with the both of you. Let's start by the first over itself, Belly. It's not often that we see James Anderson bowl 4 in-swingers in the first ball or the first over of a test match. He's clearly done something different, or he came into with the intention of bowling differently in this game. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells you that he's got an amazing skill set. The fact that he can swing the ball in, out, wobble seam, whatever the pitch or conditions need on the day, or whether it's home or away, he's got that now. He really has become, obviously his numbers suggested the best seamer we've ever had. So, look, I think today was all about making the batsman play. Again, when you could see the numbers there, we're talking about committing the batsman to the front foot. So I think with him bowling the in-swinger is making India play as many balls and trying to hit the stumps as much as possible. It happened to be the outswinger who got the wicket, but, a set up beautifully. But it felt like, again, he just made the Indian batsman in particular, so in that first over, play the ball. Arguably, probably wasn't a big drive at Headingley early isn't the ideal shot. But credit to Jimmy Anderson again for moving the ball in the air and committing India to play around that third, fourth stump line.
Yeah, let's talk about Rahul first. Money, when he's coming at the back of runs, are you perhaps okay to drive in the first over of a test, or are you guilty of, not respecting conditions enough? Was the drive on at that ball if you talk about the Rahul wicket?
See, this can happen to any cricketer basically. If you've scored runs in the previous two test matches, that overconfidence is there and you think you can do it. But these English conditions are not such. You can't just put your foot forward and start driving as soon as you come on to play. You've got to give yourself some time to adjust to the pace and the bounce of the surface and know the conditions better. As far as Jimmy Anderson is concerned, I had something on mind about him. I think he's such a tremendous thinker of the game. You're talking about those first 4 in-swingers and then pushing the ball away from the batsman. I think this is all planned. This is all that homework that he does, and that is why he's been so consistent all throughout his career. I mean, he doesn't look such a big lad or anything, but he's still got those qualities. Why? Because he's mentally there. So I think he did KL Rahul basically, and probably might have had this at the back of his mind that he's been getting runs in the first two test matches. He'll be overconfident. I'll first push 4 in and then give him a driving length ball, and he's going to go for it. And that is exactly what KL Rahul did.
Yeah, we first acknowledged through Mani's answer there, Belly, that the first thing that Anderson's been forced to do is bowl differently as a result, perhaps, of what the first two tests have shown.
Yeah, look, I think as well as an opening batsman or as a top order batsman, you'd love some early leaves. You want to see the ball go past, get the feel for the pitch, see the ball, and by bowling the in-swingers early, what is able to happen is make KL play at the ball and maybe actually look back on those test matches. And I thought that's what India's opening partnership had done really well, is around that fourth stump they'd left the ball really well. So bowling in-swingers initially, you're making them play, and then obviously with the outswinger, one, it's nice to bowl an outswinger, but if you're doing it from straight, and then into fourth stump. It was amazing. But yeah, a great skill set. Just shows that whatever conditions come, he does have an answer and the skill set to do it. It makes it look a lot easier than it actually is. But yeah, hats off. And like I said, to change and evolve like he does at this age at 39, it's just an incredible to watch.
Now, Pujara and Kohli followed.
And
Now,
I
though,
would
still with Steve.
I would just like to add one thing here. Jimmy
Hmm.
Anderson, he's somebody who will not give you what you want to have. You think that Jimmy Anderson is somebody who takes the ball away from the bat all the time, but he makes sure that the batsman start thinking that why is he doing that? So that can confuse you and spoil your concentration.
Yes, absolutely. As we just extend the chat to the Pujara and Kohli wickets, now that may look like the ball that's going away. But what's he forced a batter to do here, Belly? They've obviously come in with a plan on how to play Anderson. And a lot of that is to do with, yes, there's going to be a lot of outswing. Suddenly you see him bowl differently. So what's the batsman got to suddenly do now in this test match that they probably haven't done?
Look, I think preparation. You're always, aren't you? Whatever test match, whatever you're coming up against as a batsman, you're always preparing the best you can. I think the hardest thing when you've got someone like Jimmy, it's not easy to replicate what he does in the middle in the nets because getting people to bowl in swingers, out swingers, wobble seam, it's not easy. So it becomes a mental challenge, and certainly for Pajara at the moment, we've all been there where runs aren't flowing as nice as you or as easily as you would like. So he's obviously trying to dig in. But again, Jimmy, when you're trying to survive against someone like Jimmy, it's particularly hard because he's not going to give you, a lot of bad balls. So if you get a bad ball, you have to be able to put it away. But today, I thought we saw Jimmy at his absolute best, and any doubt around that off stump, fourth stump line, it was absolutely brilliant. And he has, to be fair, and Pujara is a wonderful player, but Jimmy has really exposed that top of off area of Pujara in this series so far.
What is the way to survive though against Jimmy Anderson, Belly? I'll just stick with you on that. If he doesn't give you too many
Yeah,
bad balls, how do you survive against him?
yeah. Look, I think it's the reason why he's got 600 wickets. It's not particularly easy. Probably at the non-strikers end is probably the easier way. But look, I think that you can be a little bit more proactive. I think when you've got somebody, I mean, Jimmy in those conditions isn't going to try and bowl too fast. He's just going to try and hit an area and use his skill set. So maybe being a bit more proactive, occasionally stand out your crease. Don't stand in the same spot twice. I think what will be really interesting to see how Rashid Pant comes out after tea because he will be proactive. So I think again, surviving is one way, but again, Test match batting is good defence, but also finding a way to put pressure back onto the bowler as well. So maybe that's something India might look at next time, is how they can do that. But I think you have to give a lot of credit to England. And I think also the mentality of winning the toss and bowling like they did at Lords. The pressure that's on that to bowl India out to actually losing the toss and bowling is a completely different pressure. And actually, the pressure is more on India to score that big first innings run. So those kind of things play into. I think it's into the scenario as well. And I think England feel a lot more comfortable that the pressure isn't on them on through those decisions.
The Pujara wicket money. We thought runs in the third innings at Lords might well have just been what Pujara needed. Did he just get a good one today? Could he have done anything differently?
See, Chiteshwar Pujara, to be very honest, doesn't he never gives me confidence on conditions like this on English grounds. Because he goes into too much of a defensive mode, and then what happens is you miss out on deliveries where you can score runs, rotate the strike, and take the pressure off yourself. Because if you're going to carry on playing six balls in and over all the time, you're going to nix one or the other. So this is what's happening with Pujara. So he's got to be a little proactive, like just Belly said. You got to keep thinking that how do I get runs as well, because that puts pressure on the bowler. If the bowler in these kind of conditions knows that he's not going to try and score runs off me, he could even pitch the ball a little further up, and he knows he's not going to go for a boundary. So there's nothing to lose for a bowler, even
Hmm.
when somebody is playing like that, to bowl a ball, a full pitched ball, which could go for a boundary on a normal day. But when you know that the batsman in a defensive mode, he's not going to hit me for a boundary, and that gives more time for the ball to swing and seam.
Yeah, we've discussed this at length even during the Australia series. It looks like Pujara always gets jaffers, but I think we did remember Glenn McGrath make the observation that batters like him will tend to get more balls than the bowlers land right because there's no pressure on him. Is that an observation that you're seeing as well, Belly, in Pujara?
Look, I think he plays a certain role, doesn't he, for India? There's no doubt. I mean, he is like the foundation, and he's done that extremely well, certainly in India. And you all need different types of players. Obviously, Jonathan Trott for England was that kind of player for us. And you know, if you can get through that first 2 hours, it's amazing. The stroke players down the order have so much more freedom. So, but there is a balance to be had. It can't all be about survival. He's a better player than just surviving. We know that, and actually, if you are in that survival, your footwork doesn't quite move the same. You don't quite get into your forward defensive, and exactly as been said, you have to be able to put pressure back onto a high quality bowler, and that's what Test cricket's all about. So potentially for him, a bit of thinking. I mean, we know he's a quality player, but being a bit more proactive might be helping than just solely about defence.
Now, before I get to the third wicket, let's do the fourth one, right? And then save Kohli for the end. Mani, you make an interesting point about whether a batter is inspiring a lot of confidence. You seem like Pujara and Rahane are in a similar sort of situation. Rahane, I think, has come at the back of a half century. That's just what you need. But he doesn't look like a player who's just got a half century in the last innings. It was a bit of a struggle to his 18, eventually nicks one. What do you make of Ajinkya Rahane, Maninder?
Absolutely. Absolutely, you've hit the nail on the head. Basically, he doesn't give you that confidence. It doesn't look like as if he scored a half century in the previous Test match, and an important contribution actually. If you see, these kind of innings should give you confidence. Even though when we were talking before the Test match started, Belly was saying that it's not the 50s that count, it's the hundreds that count. But in the previous Test match, we saw that Cheteshwar Pujara and Ajinkya Rahane got the 50s and they counted. But again, Rahane is again one player who I always used to think is going to be a fantastic player in the future, but he doesn't give you that confidence when he's batting. It doesn't look like he's going to get you runs. It's I remember Dilip Vengsarkar, first 10-15 minutes he used to look like he's going to struggle, but after those 10 minutes, the way he used to bat, it never felt like those first 10 minutes he struggled. But this
Yeah.
is what expect at this international level from a player like a Pujara or a Ajinkya Rahane, that if you spend 10-15 minutes, then you should be able to negotiate any kind of ball.
Yeah, it's a fair point as well. Plus, we're reaching the end of a session where, if you're a Virat Kohli or a Pujara who's got out in less than 10 balls, maybe you could say, okay, didn't get your eye in, or Rahul gets out or not. Ran has nearly played an hour. You just feel like, at that point, batter's got to capitalize.
Yeah, like you said, getting into a break is a tricky time. He's obviously done a lot of hard work to get to the break, and whether your mind, again, that's the beauty of Test match cricket, you start to try and play a little bit safe to get to lunch, where you still got to keep the same mentality ball after ball. I actually thought he played quite nicely in terms of his late. I thought he played soft hands compared to some of the other Indian dismissals. I thought he actually played soft hands. We saw a few thick edges go down, not carry to slip, and then go to third man, or like I said, not carry. I thought that was a nice bit of bowling from Robinson, and one of his strengths actually is getting that bit of extra bounce, and he got that on that dismissal. But again, it's a funny one, and we've watched Rahane with these back-to-back series for a long time now, or this whole winter and summer in England. And you think that with the confidence he gets on selection, it doesn't feel like his place is in trouble. But body language and the way he's playing looks like there's obviously a few internal battles that he's playing at the moment with his batting. But again, if you hear Virat talk that this is his group, he trusts them, he backs them. So as a player, that can only give you a lot of confidence, but it's just not quite happening in terms of outcome in runs.
Now, the Virat Kohli wicket. Let's get both of you to sink your teeth into it, which gave Jimmy Anderson a lot of pleasure, as we would have expected. What's gone wrong there, Mani? What's Virat Kohli gone wrong?
I think he's basically making the same mistakes that he was making on the first tour of England. He's playing away from the body, and it could happen to you if you're not playing regular cricket, if you're not in practice. I mean, you could practice anything, but coming into a match is altogether a different thing. And if you got out a couple of times the same way as you did in 2013, 2014, when he just got 138 runs in 10 innings, I think things start coming back. That am I playing the wrong line? Should I be leaving these balls? Because all these Indian boys in the first two Test matches, I saw that they were leaving these balls outside the off stump, and I don't know what happened in this Test match, that they were wanting to play at it and pay the price for it. And I think with Virat Kohli, he's going through a bad patch, I feel.
Belly?
Yeah, absolutely spot on. I think, as Manny said, I think for me, he's just going a little bit hard at the ball, as we said early in England, especially in the first session of a Test match. You've got to play late. You've got to let the ball come under your eyes and nearly smother the ball if there's any movement. And as we said, if you nick the ball with soft hands and you play it late, the ball generally runs down and doesn't carry as a slip. If you go hard at the ball, you're in the keeper and slip into play. Again, I think there was some good bowling. I think England, that was them at their best in terms of, I thought, as a unit, as we talked about India's unit, I thought all four of the seams and Moeen backed each other up really well. No real freebies out there. But yeah, from a technical point of view, you'd say probably just gone a bit hard in the channel. And if there's one place, I mean, I found that many a time, nicked the same ball a lot at Headingley. I can tell you that. It's not an easy place to drive the ball, so you have to own that half volley actually isn't necessarily, it's a wicket taking delivery, the full drive ball out of all the grounds in England, so you've got to be careful on that delivery.
Is there in any way a keenness to take on Jimmy Anderson from Virat Kohli? Anyone? Money?
Well,
Yeah, Benny, go for it.
Go for
no,
it,
well,
Billy.
I think that's Virat. We talked a lot about his presence, which makes him so successful as a captain. But you get the feel he likes to impose himself on the situation, doesn't he? And that's a great characteristic. But again, with that, you still have to let the ball come and play late. But it feels to me, like you said, he's one of the best players we've ever seen, and at the moment he looks like he's trying so hard to score runs. And sometimes you've just got to allow the game to happen, allow the ball to come to you a little bit longer. That's what I feel. I take Jimmy Anderson out the equation. I just think he's trying so hard to score runs that actually just relax and let it happen. And like I said, he's such a good player, it will come. But again, what a battle. And that's what we've all looked forward to. I think whether it was in India or in England, that battle, that contest is the one everyone wants to see all the time.
It's a tough. Yes, man.
Ronak, before the test match, Virat Kohli had said that in these English conditions, you got to keep your ego in your pocket. And I think that's absolutely right. I mean, if you try to dominate like Virat Kohli normally bats, these are not the pitches that he can bat like that. He's got to spend some time there, like he did on the previous tour where he scored almost 600 runs. And then once you know the pace and once you know how much the ball is seaming around, then you can carry on playing your shots. These are not Indian pitches, or these are not those flat pitches where you just put your foot forward and start driving. These are the kind of pitches you need to spend some time there. And I think what he preached, he'll have to practice. Keep your ego in your pocket.
Yeah, it's a shame none of us are at the ground to actually witness this, but you almost feel like if he gets a bit of chirp, a bit of fire, suddenly we may see the best of Kohli. And to his rather, you'd say, pleasant surprise, he wasn't received by a lot of talk when he walked out today. Maybe he was expecting it after everything that went down at Lords, but England have pretty much got it spot on. You think then they've not poked the tiger. They've simply kept it to their areas, and that seemed to have also helped.
Yeah, I think so. I think, like Joe Root said, they've learned some lessons. There's no doubt they got very emotional at Lords, and they've actually tried to calm that and go back to Plan A, which again, we've talked a lot about. Actually, Headingley probably is extreme as any ground in England. That first session is the bowlers. You don't need to try too much. You just need to let the ball do the work. And for the batter, you want to work hard so you can get to that third session where the ball's old, the bowlers are tired, and that's where the runs come. But yeah, England have done exactly what they needed to do, which is great to see that they have learnt some lessons there. And hopefully, again, they can be ruthless after tea. There's some seriously dangerous players still to come from India's point of view. And again, I never see Headingley as a 450, 500. If they can find a way of getting a score, that England batting lineup still under a little bit of pressure as well. So I think we're set up at the moment for a great game of cricket.
Yeah, let's look ahead now to that next session. It's anybody's guess how Rishabh Pant comes out and approaches things. Is he just going to come out the way we expect him to, Money?
Well, I do, because that's the way to go about it. You are in this in the Indian side because of the way you've scored runs at domestic level, and then he's done it at international level as well. And certainly, if he tries to change his game, probably he might struggle in these conditions. So probably counter attack could be a better answer than trying to go into a shell and try and spend some time there, because when these kind of batsmen who are attacking try to play a defensive game, then they just go into a defensive mode. And then when they get a ball to drive or score runs, they suddenly think that, oh, there's that ball to score runs, and they make a mistake. So I think he'll have to go with that positive frame of mind with which he plays, and that could put some pressure on the English bowlers.
Rohit Sharma seems to be the standout batter, Belly, when it comes to at least seeing out the new ball now. What's he doing differently?
well, we talked there about putting your ego in your pocket. I think he's done that. I think he's striking about 20 or something, and that's very unusual. Someone like Rowick, we know him as such a beautiful stroke player, and has played conditions well. Again, I think in these conditions, you need a bit of luck. You need to play and miss the and not those little nicks. You need a little bit of that in these pitches. But yeah, he's defensively been very good. I think, like I said, in the 2 Test match previously, technically and the way he's left the ball and defended, he's been outstanding. And for him as well as a player, he's been so dominant in India in Test match cricket. But to see him play like this, I think we're seeing a guy actually in good form. But what India are going to need now is a partnership and him to go on and get a big score. If he gets a big score and there's a partnership, because there's enough batting there, we've seen that with India already, to get a competitive total, they're still in the game.
It was interesting. We saw Joe Root bring on Moeen Ali before Craig Overton, 16th, 17th over after Jimmy Anderson's spell. Money, any reason why we saw spin so early?
I'll be very honest with you. I used to run to my captain in the first 1 hour of the game to give me that ball in my hand on the first day, because there's always that moisture which helps you grip the ball and turn the ball and get that bounce. And I think that is exactly what they've done. Because the ball was turning. If you saw Moeen Ali's overs, he was turning the ball. Even though I don't think he's that great a spinner or that big a spinner who could have got wickets at that stage, but the ball definitely turns in the first 1.5 hours, and especially in England, it could be 2 hours where there's moisture on the surface.
I don't know how Craig Overton would feel about that, really.
I don't think he was on for too long, but I do think it was nice to have a look at Moeen. And man, he's exactly right. On that first day, if the wicket's a bit soft and there's a bit of moisture, it can grip and actually turn a little bit more on day 1 than maybe it grips on day 2 and 3, where the wicket's a bit harder, a bit drier, until we get to that deterioration on day 4 and 5. So I was happy with that. Again, the fact that we had a little look, maybe they had an idea of maybe early to Rahane. But again, I thought they had a look, but it wasn't like an 8-over spell. It was a 2-over spell, and Overton was in. But again, whatever they did, they all backed each other up today as well. So I thought so far the tactics from England have been absolutely outstanding.
All right. Well, England session quite clearly in the morning. Let's see how the afternoon session goes. Maninder Singh, Ian Bell, thank you very much. Pick up the conversation at tea on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. You think you'll see a little more of Moeen Ali? Rishabh Pant comes in now in the second session. Ravindra Jadeja to follow too. So keep an eye out on how this innings progresses, and we'll pick up the chat at tea time.